There were fires burning outside, and against the light, Carlyle caught the familiar silhouette of a 12-meter battle mech with a blunt snout and a massive right arm. He felt a sharp chill of recognition. It was a GRG-1N Dragon, the classic, the iconic mech of the Draconis Combine, and it was making its ponderous way directly toward the command center camera. A young man faced the screen, eyes wide, soot smeared across his face. "Clovis! Clovis!" he screamed. "Do you copy? This is Kintaba Command. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Estimate 10 Combine mechs. They came out of Dreckin nowhere. We need assistance, ASAP. Please respond. Please respond." At his back, the dragon reached the command center and almost casually extended its left arm, the closed fist coming through the acrylic in a shower of glittering, spinning shards. The Draconis Combine's relationship with the BattleMech got off to a rocky start. Following the manufacturing and successful testing of the first mechs for the Terran hegemony, the race was on for each of the great houses of the Inner Sphere to get their hands on the technology for themselves. When the hegemony deployed a lance of 100-ton Macchies against a company of House Kurita armored vehicles on the planet Styx in 2443, it was a shockingly lopsided victory for the mechs. When spies reported that House Steiner had already stolen the technology and begun research into producing mechs of their own, the Kuritans acted quickly. A pair of daring covert ops raids into Steiner territory in 2461 were a tremendous success, and now the Dragon had its own path toward battlefield dominance. At least, that was the plan. A secret BattleMech research division was set up on New Samarkand to quickly apply the stolen technology to a homegrown prototype. New Samarkand Armor Works, which eventually would become Luthien Armor Works when the capital shifted, worked diligently to create House Kurita's first BattleMech. By 2468, the GLD-1R Gladiator was in production. Unfortunately, this 55-ton mixed-range brawler suffered from a litany of issues including poor sealing, poor craftsmanship, and it was unbalanced, which made the mech prone to falling. When put up against House Steiner mechs in 2475, it performed so poorly that the entire project was scrapped, and the Gladiator production line was shut down. Unable to give up entirely, lest they be overrun by armies led by battlemechs from House Steiner and the Federated Sons, the Dragon refocused and redoubled their efforts with a brand new design. The resulting Von Roars, a 65-ton battlemech which wielded a PPC, LRM-10, and a flamer, was promising. Reports suggested it was a big step up in quality from the Gladiator, and if it weren't for events beyond the control of the mech's design and production teams, it would have likely ended up being a staple mech of the DCMS. The Von Roars had the misfortune of being named after Kozo von Roars, and it was inexorably tied to the family's business and political interests. When the Von Roars were killed off during the McAllister Rebellion, orders went out to change the mech's name in all official paperwork, and the production lines were shut down. Work on the new BattleMech designs continued, and when the Combine leadership saw that the SLDF was looking to upgrade their rather disappointing initial Shadowhawk mechs, they saw an opportunity to get their foot in the door with those lucrative military contracts. Luthien Armor Works sent a lance of their brand new DRG-1C Dragon battlemechs for testing. Unfortunately, the Dragon really wasn't given much of a chance, as the existing working relationship between the SLDF and Lang Industries made the upgraded Shadowhawks a predetermined winner. The Combine complained about the lack of fairness in the process, but ultimately it was for naught. Representatives returned home with the bad news, and Dragon production continued for domestic supply. The Dragon weighed in at 60 tons, making it a runt in the heavy class of battlemechs. It was intended to fill the role as a generalist heavy mech that could quickly move to fill in gaps in a line or rush ahead to exploit breaks in an enemy's defenses. For the remaining years of the Star League and into the Succession Wars, the Combine produced so many Dragons that it was seen as the standard battle mech of the Draconis Combine. That's quite an accomplishment considering the Panther existed. Luthien Armor Works created a vast production line on the Combine capital world which pumped out hundreds, then thousands of Dragons to help fuel the Kuritan war machine. He dodged his mech behind a tall rock outcropping that blocked the line of sight and continued to pull back. "Sergeant Lewis, I could use some support here," he said into his neurohelmet mic. There was no response, and Harley didn't wait for any. As he moved the Sentinel to bank around another mound of boulders, he took another blast from the Dragon's autocannon, this time hitting his right arm just below the elbow actuator. Though it only damaged armor plating, Harley knew that time was running out. The first take on the Dragon was designated the 1C, and it set the rough form for later variants. It was constructed around a 300 fusion engine, moved with a 580 movement profile, and carried 13 tons of standard plate armor. The primary weapon, if it could be called that, was an AC-2 autocannon installed into the right arm, which was fed by 1 ton of ammunition in the right torso. Backing up this undersized autocannon was the LRM-10 launcher installed into the center torso, which was stocked with 2 tons of ammunition in the left torso. Finally, 2 medium lasers were added, 1 in the left arm and 1 in the left torso facing the rear arc. Overall, the 1C is a very underpowered design, and a lot of blame falls on that AC-2, which was just too heavy for the damage it could apply to a target. As a result, only 2 years passed before the Dragon saw its first official upgrade. That upgrade, the Dragon 1N, was fast for a heavy mech. 19 tons of the entire mech's mass was devoted to that engine, which aided in its missions. The price for that would be paid elsewhere, as fans of the channel now well understand opportunity cost spares no one. The top speed of 86 kilometers per hour was nice, as that 580 movement profile couldn't be matched by most other heavy mechs and even plenty of mediums. The 10 tons of Starshield standard plate armor placed the Dragon in the middle of the pack insofar as 60-ton mechs go. It had 2 tons more than the Champion 2N and a half ton more than the Lancelot 2502, but less than the 65-ton Exterminator's 10.5 tons and 3 tons less than the Grasshopper 5H. Though keep in mind the Grasshopper is 10 tons heavier overall. The Dragon's 10 single heat sinks were typical for the time and could hardly be needed as a ballistics and missile-focused loadout. The remaining 19 tons of mass on the Dragon after sensors, gyro, and cockpit systems were devoted to a mix of weapon types. An Imperator A Autocannon 5 dominated the mech's right arm, fed by 2 tons of ammunition in the right torso. Backing it up in the center torso was a Telos Deca Cluster LRM Missile 10 system fed by 2 tons of ammunition stored in the left torso. Finally, 2 medium lasers were added to the mech, 1 in the left arm and 1 in that left torso facing the rear firing arc. Overall, the weapons loadout for the Dragon has been described as thoroughly bland, uninspired, or even just bad. Often the fact that its 4 tons of ammunition are split between both side torsos is pointed out as a serious liability for the mech, and I think that's a fair critique. 40 shots of AC-5 ammunition sounds good so long as you live long enough to expend it all. Spread across the DCMS units, Dragons were often found on or near the front lines where they could quickly rush enemies or just charge right at them. It would have been a challenge to find a company of DCMS throughout the Succession Wars that didn't have at least one Dragon among their ranks. Through frequent contact, conquest, and defeat, and the occasional victory as well, Dragons started to show up in units outside of the borders of the Combine, especially among the Lyrans and Federated Sons. Additionally, with the creation of the Free Rosselhog Republic, a large number of Dragons and Panthers ended up among the Royal Kung's army. Francine Rogette twisted the controls of her PNT-8Z Panther, firing her jump jets and sailing through the air, coming down squarely behind the massive Kurita Dragon. She was outmassed 60 tons to 35, but was in the perfect position to do some deadly damage with her Tronel laser. She raised her right arm, targeting the back of the Dragon's head, then bit off a curse as a laser in the enemy's rear torso flashed. Her large laser went dead. Bloody hell. The variant history for the Dragon is a little tricky, as it isn't quite as simple as just saying here are the variants and that's that. The Dragon has evolved with several genuine variants and into technically different mech chassis altogether. Hopefully by the end of this it'll all make a strange sort of sense. If not, I'm going to be in big trouble with my DCMS handlers. The second official variant for the Dragon after the 1N was designated the 5N in 3047. but it was preceded by a one-of refit owned by warlord Siovo Yoriyoshi, who fielded his unique take on the dragon during his fight against the AFFS on Galtor in 3025. We're going to stick to the timeline and talk about this refit first before the 5N. The Yoriyoshi Dragon, or DRG-2Y, had significant structural changes, the first being an additional 2.5 tons of standard armor, and the other being 6 additional heatsinks, bringing the total to 16. In a much more energy-focused build, the 2Y carried a large laser in the right arm in place of that original AC-5 autocannon. Backing it up was the original left arm medium laser, and SRM-4 was placed into the center torso and added a significant short-range punch. A single ton of ammunition placed into the left torso fed the launcher. Finally, for extremely short-range conflict de-escalation, a flamer was added to the center torso and an emotional support small laser was added to the head. In my completely unbiased and professional opinion as YouTube's #1 BattleTech country hip-hop fusion recording artist, the Yoriyoshi Dragon is the gold standard for what the Dragon should have been originally. It has a good mixture of weapons but excels at close range, where dragons want to be anyway. It's possible to overheat, but only if firing almost everything. The DRG-2Y is great. If you haven't had a chance to try it out, please do so. It might change your opinion on the Dragon entirely. Now, leaping ahead to the previously mentioned Dragon 5N, it was introduced in 3047 in an attempt to boost the mech's power and provide a much-needed quality of life improvement. The changes were almost entirely to the weapon's loadout, as the movement speed, armor, and 10 single heatsinks weren't touched. In the right arm, the Ultra AC-5 was the 5N's primary damage dealer at range. The LRM-10 in the center torso wasn't touched, and neither was the left arm medium laser. Basically, the rear-facing medium laser was sacrificed to double the possible forward-facing autocannon damage. Need a minute to calm down? Let's just take a few seconds, because I know it's easy to become overstimulated. There. Good? Good. The last change for the 5N was the installation of case in both the left and right torso to protect the LRM ammunition and the 1 ton of UAC-5 ammo. While it was a needed addition, it's clear that the platform itself needed a rework, as we could make an inference that moving one of the ammunition feeds to concentrate all of them into one torso and save a half ton of mass was too much trouble. Now, that's not the canon explanation, but it's the most likely one. While the 5N was not the last variant of the Dragon, it was clear by the mid-3040s that the Dragon needed a serious overhaul. Instead of attempting to revamp the original with an extensive upgrade, Luthien Armorworks proposed a significant upgrade that would be considered a new battlemech design. The Grand Dragons that marched off the assembly lines in 3050 were similar in look to the original, but underneath the proverbial hood, much had been changed. It still weighed in at 60 tons and could hit a top speed of 97.2 kilometers thanks to a Hermes 360 XL Fusion engine. That's a 690 movement profile for those like me who are bad at math. It was given 13 double heat sinks and carried 10 tons of standard plate armor. Finally, seeking to address a lack of offensive range punch, an ERPPC was installed into the right arm, giving up on that ballistics class of weaponry. The original LRM-10 was left in the center torso. The left arm medium laser held fast, and finally a pair of medium lasers were split between the side torsos, facing the rear arc. The Grand Dragon's 13 double heat sinks were adequate for keeping the mech running cool in all but the most dire of circumstances when firing in the rear arc as well as the front. Overall, swapping to the ERPPC from the autocannon was a smart choice. However, the Grand Dragon 5K still lacked the power that it needed to be considered fearsome. The speed boost helped it close the distance between targets, but beyond kicking and punching, the Mechwarriors were faced with a tough challenge if they wanted to effect change on the battlefield. The use of the XL engine also introduced vulnerability to the mech, which ran contrary to the mech's original mission statement. At the risk of this becoming a Grand Dragon video, we need to point out that from here on out, the two mechs are considered different entities. For the purposes of our chat today, we're going to focus on the Dragon moving forward. The Grand Dragon does receive various improvements and upgrades down the timeline, but that's a discussion for another video. Back on track. Though the wind was blowing away from the little group, they all abruptly heard the creaking actuators and thudding footfalls of an approaching battlemech. Everybody hunkered down a little lower into cover as the 60-ton Grand Dragon, the Draconis Combine's workhorse mech, lumbered into view around the giant basalt knee. The heavy mech bore the carreted dragon in a circle on its right shoulder housing. Its slab-like left shin also displayed the Black Dragon insignia. Even with the Grand Dragon now being produced, the existing dragons weren't forgotten, and a few new ones were still being produced each year. The DRG-5NR debuted in 3076 during the Blakist kerfuffle, and it sought to take advantage of the relatively new light autocannon technology. The mech's basic structure didn't see any changes, and most of the weapons were no surprise either. The LRM-10 sat in the center torso, fed by 2 tons of case-protected ammunition in the left torso. A second standard medium laser was added to the mech's left arm, and a third was found in the left torso facing the rear firing arc. The change was found in the right arm light autocannon 5, fed by 2 tons of case-protected ammunition in the right torso. For those who might need the refresher, the light AC-5 has a mass 3 tons less than a standard AC-5 and takes up just 2 critical locations instead of 4. All of this was at the cost of a little bit of range for each shot. For the Dragon, which wants to be up close on targets anyway, this was an easy trade. Finally, the 5NR sports a C3 slave computer in the head for coordination with its allies in the field. While the changes to the Dragon 5NR are minor, I appreciate the continued effort to at least try to make the ballistics more feasible with newer technology. I'm sure there are some Dragon ballistics purists out there who are really offended if you don't go with that autocannon, so this one is for you. Next up, taking a slight step back in 3063 was the Dragon 7N, which finally took the mech's ballistic primary weapon seriously with an upgrade to a Gauss rifle in that right arm. The variant also moved the traditional AC-5 autocannon to the left arm, where it was fed by 1 ton of ammunition in the right torso. The center torso locations were filled with a medium-range missile system 10, and a single ton of ammunition was also protected by case in that right torso. Finally, a standard medium laser sat in the left torso. While this does reflect a serious upgrade to the Dragon's power, it is accomplished through the use of endosteel and the infamous Inner Sphere XL engine. As with the Grand Dragon, the use of that XL engine seriously impacted the durability of the design that otherwise relied upon it for usefulness. While not necessarily a bad thing, this changes the likely mission profile of the 7N from rushing brawler to a long to mid-range fighter. At least it runs cool with the 10 double heat sinks. While the 7N is the last of the official Dragon variants, the name would live on in both the Grand Dragon and the Dragon 2, which is a new design introduced in 3099. Like the other great houses during the Word of Blake kerfuffle, the Draconis Combine took a significant hit to their economic system and industrial base. Luthien Armor Works was not spared, as most of the company's production lines on Luthien and Daeron were knocked offline with considerable damage. There was discussion over their ability to recover at all, but ultimately the choice was made to rebuild no matter the cost. Part of that reconstruction included the greenlighting of the 65-ton Dragon 2 project, which drew heavily upon elements from the original but incorporated a plethora of new technologies like the Nikevarn Type 5866 SH endosteel and 12.5 tons of Duralex Guardian 2 light ferrofibrous armor. One of the goals for the Dragon 2 was to make sure that all the parts of the BattleMech were sourced from within the Draconis Combine. It's reminiscent of the North Korean Juche principle from the 20th and early 21st centuries. Thankfully, in the race to cram the mech with new technology, the Luthien Armor Works designers didn't go down the XL engine route. The Dragon 2 11K was given the Magma 260 fusion engine, which meant a slower Dragon in comparison to its predecessors. With just a 460 movement profile, the mech had other priorities rather than rushing at enemy lines while flailing its arms. The Dragon 2 11K's primary weapons were an ERPPC in the right arm and an Aero 4 system split between the center torso and left torso, which was fed by 3 tons of Case 2 protected ammunition in the right torso. The classic LRM-10 had nothing on the Aero 4's ability to fire 85 hexes for 20 damage. Finally, for closer range impromptu Pink Floyd light shows, a medium X pulse laser was added to the left arm, which could do 6 damage out to 9 hexes with improved accuracy. The final product was a reimagining of the Dragon, which was now able to hit much harder and was tougher to put down, but at the cost of some of the mech's iconic speed. After testing, production of the Dragon 2 was ramped up and the first mechs were delivered to DCMS units. Early on, they tended to be picked up by the politically connected officers rather than the rank and file. In turn, the DCMS Mechwarriors were a little quicker to dismiss those in Dragon 2s as less capable than those in older machines. Battlefield reports were favorable, usually highlighting the use of the Aero 4 system to lay down coordinated fire on grouped targets. On Raman, 2 lances of Dragon 2s did exactly that with the help of spotter planes, which wiped out a large contingent of the 45th Benjamin regulars and allowed Combine forces to take an important tactical position. Now, there was one official variant to the Dragon 2, which was given the designation 11R. It has been a rarity on the battlefield due to its use of clan technology and a more powerful XL engine, which pushed up the mech's cost. It also benefited from a mask system, which boosted the 580 movement to 10 for short periods of time. The 11R's weaponry was similar to the original Dragon 2, but was clan tech. This included the Arrow 4 on the left torso, an ERPPC in the right arm, a B-pod in the center torso, and a medium pulse laser in the left arm. While clearly faster and more powerful, the Dragon 2 11R is more vulnerable thanks to that Inner Sphere XL engine, and much more expensive due to it and the clan weaponry. The 10 double heat sinks are inadequate for firing both the ERPPC and Arrow 4 consistently, which means that a succession of shots without pause will quickly cause heat issues. Now, because my ego and desire for attention has no boundaries measurable by modern science, I did take a crack at creating a totally unofficial and non-canon Ill-Clan era Dragon variant. Due to the Combine's dealings with the Novacats, I've rationalized a little bit more use of clan technology than usual in this hybrid design. Structurally, the Dragon MF benefits from clan Endosteel, an XL gyro, and 10 tons of clan ferrofibrous armor. This added 32 points of additional protection for the mech, so it's a little bit bulked up. The 10 double heat sinks aren't a surprise at this point, and I think I've been true to form for the most part with the weapons loadout, except of course sacrificing the LRM-10 to the altar of Inferno launcher. The mech's primary weapons are an LB-10X in the right arm, fed by 2 tons of Case 2 protected ammunition in the right torso, and a clan large pulse laser installed into the left arm. The 1-2 punch of accurate fire in the mid and short ranges fits with the Dragon's intense desire to be up close with enemies. Adding fire and fury to the mix, a clan medium pulse laser sits in the right torso. Finally, again in the right torso, a clan tech SRM-2 and 1 ton of ammunition was added. The Case 2 protects the ammunition, and the SRM-2 launcher along with the medium pulse laser also act as roll buffers should the right torso start taking critical hits. I think the Dragon MF renders the mech into a brawler it secretly always wanted to be, but was held back by technology. If you want to give it a go, I've included the record sheet for it in the video notes below. Looking at the Dragon, it's been a tough go outside of the lore. It's one of those battle mechs where the fluff describes it as a popular and ubiquitous design, but the specs for the tabletop experience suggest it would likely underperform. Its speed is a virtue, of course, but beyond the incredibly enjoyable kicking and punching, the weapon's loadout struggles to provide significant reason for the mech's arrival at its destination. The Dragon is likely not going to play a significant role in the Draconis Combine as we move deeper into the Ill-Clan. It has been largely replaced by the Grand Dragon and Dragon 2s, plus new battle mechs like the 55-ton Exhumer are being deliberately designed by the competitors of Luthien Armorworks to grab larger and larger shares of the DCMS mech market. I hope the Dragon doesn't go completely extinct, but it's looking a little dire. Thank you as always for coming by as we talk BattleTech. If you enjoyed the video and feel it was worthy, don't forget the thumbs up button, and even hitting subscribe will make it much more likely you'll see my nonsense in the future. For those of you who have taken the extra step of becoming channel members and supported on Ko-fi, thank you very much. Without you, absolutely none of this would be possible. Until we meet again, please take care of yourself and your loved ones by making this world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.